All right, welcome back, everyone. So I'm sure y'all just saw the Lynn Wood interview we published. Also, we now have that documentary we did looking into election fraud available on YouTube, at least until they pull it down. So, but of course, we initially said we weren't going to put it on YouTube. We decided, heck, what's the worst they're going to do? Pull it offline? If that's the case, so be it. But frankly, if you all watch it, I think you'll find the facts are all there, the information's all there, everything's independently verifiable. And again, if you like it, please consider sharing it. We really need help getting that out there. yeah, good to see y'all here. Let's see. Yeah, all right, folks. So we have a few different stories today. First off, I'm going to give some updates on where things are at with the election. Go into some of the different, let's say, different areas with each of the different issues we're facing, including, for example, the lawsuits around the voting machines, including, for example, where Trump is at in terms of he claims being able to turn it around, where it's at with some of the, say, fake news claims on this, and also what's happening in some of the states. And hey, welcome back, everybody. Good to see y'all here. Let's see. Patriot Spreads, good documentary. Appreciate it. Thank you. And again, check the channel now. I now have it on YouTube, at least for now. We'll see how long it stays up, but it's there right now. Please watch it. Please spread it. Yeah, Ro Kelly, thanks. M. Devin, hello, Joshua. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, less than aloha. Yeah, aloha as well. Thank you. All right, folks. Yeah, mahalo. Right. All right, everyone, let's jump into it now. Let's see. Now, first story for today. Again, Epoch Times, we have some of the different links up. Check it out here. It says, Trump, we're getting closer and closer to a successful challenge to election results. Now, hear me out. This is what Trump is saying. It says here, President Donald Trump alleged Sunday that, quote, we're getting closer and closer. This is in reference to his ongoing challenges to election results in key battleground states. And he said this in an interview with WABC radio, quote, we're getting closer and closer, and I hope you let everybody know we're actually very close. He continues saying this, the fake news will not let you know that. They don't want to talk about it. They're trying to suppress it. We don't have freedom of the press at all. It's suppressed news. It's a terrible thing that's happening in our country. It's been going on it started a long time ago, but it's gotten to a point. It's a terrible thing. It's not freedom of the press, and we've got to bring that back because the press is so suppressed. It's so dishonest. I don't even call it fake news anymore. I call it corrupt news. Now, Kev, you're saying, but close to what? Let me get into that. So right now, let's go over some of the different areas that are happening with this election, right? Now, I think you have about, I don't know, maybe 5 or more points where I think things are in the battleground stage right now. Let's go over them. The first one Trump is talking about is, of course, January 6th. What's going to happen January 6th? Well, you're going to have the dueling states bringing their own electors, right? We have dueling electors in play. We've had this before, and actually elections have been turned around based on fewer dueling electors than this. There's a bit more to it. I'll go into it. Right now, you have 7 states with dueling electors, and Trump only needs to win a few of those to turn this around. Yeah, one sec. Yeah, Trump doesn't need to win all these to turn it around. He needs to win about 3 to turn it around, roughly. And how's that going to play out? Well, you're going to have one House, 1 Senate, and then Pence as the third vote, basically Democrat, Republican, and then Pence being the third tie-breaking vote, possibly. He can turn it around. The wild card on that is if the Republicans betray Trump, essentially. If the Republicans refuse to vote with Trump, refuse to overturn the results of the election, you already have a few of them saying they're not going to do it. So you already have a few of them saying you're not going to do it. You already have a couple of them saying they will do it. And so this is happening right now. That's going to be January 6th. Also, January 6th, Trump made what's the first public call with these protests. He's not calling it a rally. He's calling it a protest. He's asking patriots to be in D.C. to come protest on January 6th as this vote is taking place, as this vote is happening. Now, this vote, as long as Republicans don't betray Trump, essentially, Trump has a serious chance at winning it. Trump could win through this. If that doesn't happen, well, then you're going to have each possible result, possibly each state bringing their own elector. Each state designates one elector, meaning that you're going to have, again, 50 votes. Republicans do have the majority on that. Very likely they're going to vote for Trump. There's that, right? In addition to that, you have the legal challenges, which don't have to end necessarily with what's happening now. The legal challenges could last through for the foreseeable future, frankly. And according to some of the reports that have come out, allegedly, and again, we're in uncharted territory right here, right? Legal challenges submitted before December 14th, when the Electoral College casted their votes, and possibly after, but at least till December 14th, can still overturn the elections. Legal challenges submitted before that can still be considered, which means things could play out. Biden could actually be elected. He could actually go and be sworn in. And it's very possible that, again, legal challenges could go through. They could deem the election having been basically false, basically being stolen, if the legal challenges succeed. And they do have pretty strong challenges to them. And again, that means possibly a re-election would take place. That's three possible paths, right? You also then have the possibility of a special counsel. Trump has floated the idea of making Sidney Powell a special counsel. This is in addition to the Durham special counsel, which we really haven't heard anything about so far. And even if she is appointed soon, even starting immediately, she could begin challenging things. Immediately, she can begin challenging things. That's a huge wild card, and one that could actually have pretty broad impact. If Sidney Powell gets in a special counsel, this isn't going to be even limited to the elections. Possibly. She could go into other investigations, other cases as well, and possibly get things related to other forms of criminality as well. Sidney Powell becoming a special counsel is a huge deal. Now, of course, Smartmatic Dominion, they're not happy about some of the claims Sidney Powell's been making about them. They've been sending out these cease and desist letters, Dominion, and we'll have to see what happens with that with Sidney Powell. Maybe they're going to try to say that she has a conflict of interest now, based on the fact that they're threatening to sue her. They're not actually suing her yet. They're threatening to, based on these cease and desist letters. They're not giving ground on it. I have a quote later on. I'm going to read you from some of what's happening with this. Lynn Wood, those of you here might have seen the Lynn Wood interview I just published. Lynn Wood said he's going to represent Sidney Powell, and they're not folding to that. Possibility as well, that's going to go through regardless. I mean, Sidney Powell becoming special counsel, even though the Dominion thing, there's probably going to be another legal challenge over her ability to do that. 4 opportunities, right? Now, you also have Trump allegedly floating the idea of the executive order number 6, the possibility of insurrection, number 7. And from there, well, we'll have to see. From there, I don't think we have many options left. Lynn Wood is stating, those of you might have seen the the interview I just published with Lynn Wood. You might have seen that, right? Lynn Wood is saying that the hope does not even it doesn't even rest on Trump. He says the hope is on the American people. The hope is on the American people stepping forward, protesting, making your voices heard, and not allowing this whole thing to be stolen, essentially. Making sure you get out there and let the facts be heard. Don't be afraid of the censorship. Don't be afraid of them trying to shoot you down. Go out there and state the facts as they are. And that's possible too. You know, he made an interesting point, those of you who saw the interview. Lynn Wood's making the point that this is not about Trump. Yes, Trump is, of course, the one who it appears is the, let's say, aggrieved party in this whole case. But this isn't about Trump. This is about the choice of the American people. It's about maintaining the integrity of the system on which our government is built. And it's on the idea, again, that Americans should be able to elect who is in charge of their country. And if the election system itself is compromised or had issues with it, well, what is the will of the American people at that point? You know, government officials are servants, they're public servants, right? They're servants of the people. And if they do not fulfill that role, if they do not enforce what the people themselves chose, are they playing the role that government is supposed to play? Well, I'd say they are not at that point. Yeah. And so again, Trump still does have many paths to victory, as I've laid out just now. And so this isn't just, random talk he's making. He actually does have some pretty serious chances with this. And he's making the point as well, the mainstream media really isn't telling you any of this. The media is playing dumb on this, or saying it's a conspiracy theory, or making it sound like Trump is trying to launch a coup. And oftentimes they accuse others of what they themselves are doing. Now, of course, this goes into Trump's comments about the integrity of the mainstream media as well, saying, he says, I don't even call it fake news anymore. I call it corrupt news. And I would absolutely have to agree with him. Fake news, fair enough. It's journalists having their own biases and stating their own biases and playing off half-truths or outright lies as if it were truth, which is what a lot of the media do. Corrupt news would be that type of practice from an institutional level. And in this case, I would fully agree with him. What we're seeing right now is not just fake news, it is corrupt news. It is institutionalized fake news. It is directed, organized fake news. Good old-fashioned water today, hotel water to boot. Hey, Hebo Sabe, I really appreciate the support. Yeah, you've been working your butt off, asking the hard questions. Thank you. Even repeating our worries. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for the support. Real quick, Koro again. Hey, Joshua, did you garner any additional bans from Facebook due to your overwhelmingly sexually explicit face photos? Not that I've seen. Check out the channel though. We actually, that documentary we did, the election fraud documentary. Please check it out. We have published it on YouTube now. It is now on the Crossroads channel. I know we said we probably weren't going to do it because they were going to delete it anyways. If they're going to delete it, they're going to delete it. Those of you who are here, please watch that. Please spread it. And if they do delete it, we have it on other channels you can spread later. But we do have it on the channel now. So please, please, please watch that documentary. Please, please, please help spread that documentary. All right, let's go a bit deeper into the news. Now, next story up. Now, I'll go over a few different stories, and I'll jump into some of the questions, of course. Now, Senator Ted Cruz is saying anyone, quote, involved in voter fraud should be prosecuted and jailed. Let me go into this. He says this, right? Senator Ted Cruz told voters in Georgia that anyone who is involved in voter fraud should be jailed and prosecuted. And he said this. He said, quote, we are fighting together to defend the nation we love. Let me tell what we also need to do. It is time to end voter fraud. It is time to expose voter fraud. It is time to take anyone who was involved in voter fraud and prosecute them and put them in jail. And he added this, quote, our democracy matters. Our Constitution matters. Our Bill of Rights matters. America matters. And the state of Georgia will rise to defend the United States of America. Now, again, Cruz was in Georgia to rally support for Republican Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, who are vying for 2 Senate seats against Democratic challengers John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. And Cruz said this as well. The people of Georgia believe in common sense conservative values. People of Georgia want lower taxes, less regulation, and a lot more jobs. They don't want to see socialism come to this country. Now, I won't go too deep into this, but yeah, in terms of the idea of voter fraud, right? Is it a crime? Yes, it is. Is it a punishable crime? Yes, it is. Is it a crime that is being punished, heard, and prosecuted? No, it is not. How is it, again, that Zuckerberg could donate, over $400 million, allegedly, according to accusations, violate the law in doing so, and not face any repercussions on that? How is it that, again, big tech, big business, one of these, millionaires and billionaires, as they frame it, could make illegal donations like this that impact the outcome of an election and not face repercussions for it? How is that acceptable? If we have rule of law, if we have standards if we have standards on elections, if we have rules people have to play by, well, should he be prosecuted, right? And if he's not prosecuted, what message does that send? It sends the message, very simple, that people can buy an election, that money can buy an election, that the people with the most money can pour the most money in and help swing the outcome of an election as they see fit. This is no longer, at that point, this is no longer a democratic system. This is no longer a constitutional republic. It then becomes crony politics, right? It then becomes basically a banana republic, criminal organization or big business masquerading as politics. Again, ridiculous, right? How is it again that you can have local states not allowing poll watchers to watch votes being counted? How is it they can make them stand 50 feet away to the point where they can't even see the votes? How is it they can threaten poll watchers if they try to watch votes being counted, carrying out their duties to the American people? How is that legal? Right? Again, if the checks and balances on our elections get removed and done in a way that are not legal, should people be prosecuted for having, basically carried that out? If you were to ask me, yes, it should. Now, of course, this has become a partisan issue because it impacted the election, and most of the claims of fraud are from the conservative side, accusing, of course, the Democrats of having rigged it. Now, again, would Democrats be complaining the same way if Republicans did this? I think they would. Is this really a partisan issue? No, it is not, because this is determining what will be allowed in the next election. This right now, as we're seeing taking place, is determining, setting the standard for what will be allowed in the next election, what will be punishable in the next election, and what will be willing to say slide through in the next election. Again, right now, what's at stake is not just, this isn't Trump or Biden, right? This is the integrity of the system on which the United States is built upon, on which the system of government we have is built upon. And frankly, if that is overthrown and we replace it with crony capitalism, big business tyranny, big money, possibly rigging in many other ways as we've laid out, and to the point where, again, the courts won't even hear the cases, won't even listen to the testimonials, won't even look at the evidence. Well, frankly, again, as I'll say again, it means our system of justice is lost as well. Meaning then, what are we left with as a country? If we've lost the basis of our ability to choose our representatives, the basis of this election-based government we have, and also if we lose basic rule of law, what are we as a country, other than, frankly, just a big government totalitarian state that can lock people in their homes, shut down businesses, choke out capitalism, and try to pretend like they're protecting people? This is what is at risk here. This is what the United States is now facing. And again, what begins in the United States will spread to other countries. What is happening right now will become the standard of operations for other countries. And so this is not even just a U.S. thing. This is not even just about America at this point. Hey, Denise Coop, I always appreciate the support. Thank you. When you have snakes like Mitch McConnell, who is in tight with the CCP, and Mitt Romney, who is really a rabid Democrat, Trump might be in trouble. Make sure we hold our politicians accountable. Thank you, Joshua, for all you do for us. My pleasure. And I always appreciate the support as well, Denise. Thank you. And Freedom Lovin' Fool, thank you for the support. I pay attention to actions more than words, and I see Trump very vocal on Twitter, but silent on using his presidential powers. The only actions to save the republic. The electors and legal challenges are dead ends. Trust me. Well, one point Lynn Wood made is that, again, of course, people are calling for Trump to be reelected, right? They're saying the election was stolen from him. He is the aggrieved party in this. But this is not about Trump, right? This is not about Trump. One sec. Yeah. Again, this looks like a Trump-Biden thing, right? It looks like the American people are mad that Trump's not getting reelected. But look, again, this is not just about Trump. This is about the system of government we have in this country. And as you mentioned here, right, you see Trump being very vocal on Twitter, but silent and using his presidential powers. At the end of the day, who does Trump serve, right? Trump is a public servant. He is elected to represent the people of the United States of America. That is what he's supposed to represent. Will he represent the choices and decisions of the American people, or will he fold to tyranny? Will he fold to the people who are, frankly, carrying out crimes in order to change the outcome of the system, in order to overthrow the basic foundation on which our system of government is built? Trump, at the end of the day, is a public servant, right? He represents the American people. Of course, he might not want to do anything, too serious, because he wants to, say, not overstep the line and put himself in the firing line, which he would in that case, in terms of what people would say about him. But as a public servant, and watching the same evidence we're watching, what is the right choice to make for any leader in this same exact circumstance? Not just Trump. What would be the right choice for any righteous leader to make if they're seeing the election being stolen, if they're seeing widespread cases of fraud, if they're seeing people, right, in foreign interference by China, Russia, Iran? What would be the normal course of action for a public leader representing the will of the American people, the will of the people, right? Again, this is not just about Trump. And frankly, I do hope Trump acts on behalf of the will of the people, because that is what he's sworn to do. That is what he is sworn to do at the end of the day, right? This is bigger than just Trump. Michael Nguyen, thank you. What percent do you have at Trump winning? To be honest, at this point, honestly, I would put Trump winning through pre-election outcome at about 60% at this point, to be honest. Challenges, as well as the potential legal outcome of if Sidney Powell becomes special counsel, I'd still keep it about 90%. It might be the case, though, that things flip-flop, that Biden may be sworn in before the legal challenges go through. Keep in mind, just because, let's say this, just because things are moving along, just because there's a time limit in terms of the way the election plays out, doesn't mean things will be deemed, let's say, said and done with if Biden is sworn in, right? It's very possible, again, it's very, very, very possible, again, that the legal challenges will overturn it. Again, it takes a long time normally for legal challenges like this to go through. This is not like how long would it take a normal attorney to put together a case this big? Normally, you're looking at a year at least. If you're looking at government agencies putting together a case of this, you're looking at 3, 4, 5 years sometimes. And so again, you might not see immediate results. It might not happen before Inauguration Day. But again, I do think, based on the evidence we're seeing, based on the evidence being brought, based on the evidence I've personally reported on, there is more than enough to turn it around. Now let's see here. Now let's go over a few more stories. This is White House advisor Navarro. 379,000 possibly illegal ballots cast in Michigan. He says this. White House advisor Peter Navarro claimed in an interview on Monday that more than 379,000 possibly illegal ballots were allegedly cast in Michigan. And he said this to Steve Bannon on War Room. He said this. He said, my top line number at this point for possibly illegal ballots, this is just the ballots, is 379,000. That's more than twice the victory margin. And again, it says here, Navarro, the head of the White House Office for Trade and Manufacturing Policy, last week released his own report saying the election may well have been stolen from President Donald Trump. Navarro said he produced the report as a private citizen, not as a U.S. official. But in the Bannon interview Monday, Navarro claimed that he has the receipts now to prove that the votes were illegally cast in the state. This is just, this is just in Michigan he's talking about. He says he has the receipts now to prove the votes were illegally cast in that state, Michigan, saying that 174,384 ballots were cast without proper identification. Another 195,000 or so, he said, were the product of inexplicable vote surges. Navarro did not elaborate on the nature of these receipts. Now, again, those of you who watch my documentary, when I talk about these legal challenges, when I talk about the possibility they have a very strong case, I'm not just talking nonsense here. Watch my documentary. It's now on the Crossroads channel. Watch the documentary, right? Everything there is verified. Everything there could hold up in a court of law. Everything there is fact-based, double-checked, gone through many different standards of verification. It is solid. It is undeniable. And frankly, it does show they have a very strong case with this. Watch the documentary. If you find errors in it, let me know and we'll fix it. We did not find any errors. We haven't had any people give serious corrections yet, other than just minor things. And again, we fixed those as well. And so again, watch it. Everything's solid in there. I think we lay out a very, very, very strong case. Now, again, during a 9-hour period on November 4th, Trump had a significant lead over Joe Biden. Now, Navarro said this. He said within 5 seconds, around 6:30 a.m., Biden's total votes skyrocketed in 5 seconds by 141,258 votes, or 30 times the expected vote count. Now, New York Times itself had data on this. Within that same time frame, do you know how many Trump got? This is Navarro asking, right? That's 5,968. These are impossible numbers. These numbers make no possible sense. Anyone believing these numbers make any sense, frankly, I think they're just being partisan because they make no sense. They in no way align with any other data that was coming out that night. This was in 5 seconds. Now, again, the Epoch Times has reached out to the Michigan Secretary of State's office for comment about Navarro's claims. They haven't said anything on it. Now, in another instance, for example, right, in another instance around 3:50 a.m. ET in Eastern Time in Michigan, 54,497 votes were provided for Biden, while Trump only received about 4,718 votes. Navarro said this again. And if you watch the numbers throughout the night, if you watch the numbers in other swing states, if you watch the numbers coming in based on the same different types of polling, right? Same types of polling, this is statistically impossible. It is statistically impossible that this happen. And somehow this is being accepted. And not only is it being accepted, it's being accepted without judges being willing to look at the evidence. Judges are refusing to look at the evidence. Now, Navarro said there was a, quote, coordinated strategy by the Democratic Party in battleground states of, quote, bending the law or breaking the law during the election. And again, if you're breaking the law based on something that has to do with the foundation of the American political system, should you face punishments for breaking the law, right? Should you go to jail for breaking the law? Should you face something much worse if you are doing so in a coordinated fashion to overturn the outcome of an American election and steal this election from another person? To, again, alter the outcome of an election, to steal the country, essentially. Isn't that not a coup? Isn't this what we would normally call a coup? Again, it's complicated, right? It's complicated, again, because people think this is, it's partisan. Some people, of course, are viewing this just through the lens of partisanship. They don't care, frankly, what the evidence is. There are some people who will say, you're lying, this is nonsense, right? They're saying you're lying, this is nonsense. If you hit them with enough evidence, they will admit, and I've done this before, you hit them with enough evidence, they will admit, okay, yeah, there was fraud, but you know what? I don't care because I don't like that guy. That's what it comes down to. There are people willing to tolerate the total perversion of our political system for their own political interest, for their own partisan interest. And that's, I think, the real issue we're facing right now. There are people who don't care it's being stolen. There are people who don't care about the facts. There are people who don't care to look at the evidence. And frankly, a lot of them are sitting in the courts. A lot of them are sitting in the halls of Congress. A lot of them are sitting, again, behind their computers on social media. This is what we're facing right now. Now, I'll go over a few questions here, then I'll go into some more of what's happening. This is according to Christopher Scarpino. All these court cases have produced little. Game clock is running down. If we cannot rely upon the courts, what is the alternative? And is the Trump administration likely to implement them? I've heard mixed reports on this. Everyone was, of course, talking about the possibility of him initiating martial law or limited martial law, right, as General Flynn was recommending. Trump came out on Twitter and said this is fake news, that he is not considering this. His statement that this is fake news, right? His statement on this was actually based on New York Times reporting, right? So he was based on the New York Times reporting. He said this is fake news. He's not planning on martial law, according to him. I have heard mixed analysis on this in terms of rumors of what's happening behind the scenes. Who knows? It does not seem at this point that Trump is considering martial law. This does not mean, however, right? This does not mean, however, that he's not considering using some powers within the boundaries of his executive order. The executive order that he signed back in 2018, which he now has pretty substantial evidence to carry out, would not mean martial law. That would not be martial law. Based on that, though, he very likely could, one, place sanctions, very likely could bring people up for questioning, very likely could even seize these machines. And in addition to this as well, if he got, for example, Sidney Powell into a special counsel position, she could also do a lot of this. Meaning, again, that if Sidney Powell becomes special counsel, Trump will not need the courts. If Sidney Powell becomes special counsel, Trump can bypass the courts to a large extent, which is going to be very, very interesting to watch play out. But it's true, actually, Trump is running out of options if the Supreme Court is not willing to even look at the cases, which they have not so far. They're not even willing to look at evidence. And again, a lot of the big media are refusing to acknowledge any of this based on that ground. They're saying, oh, the courts keep throwing it out. Look, the courts are throwing it out without looking at the evidence. The courts are throwing it out without looking at evidence that you and I can look at based on things that we can absolutely prove. And we can see, yes, the law was broken. Why are the courts not enforcing the law? You know, it's frankly kind of ridiculous how these media are behaving. Kimberly Brown, really appreciate the support. I called one of the Supreme Court judges in Wisconsin, no threats, just questions, and she doxed me on national television. Is this legal? And from a judge of all people, you're doing a great job and wait to watch you every night. Thank you for being you. That's really crazy. A judge, according to Kimberly, a judge doxed her for calling her up and questioning her. Frankly, if you were to ask me, that shows the judge probably realizes they did something illegal, as long as you weren't threatening or just asking questions. Frankly, that probably means that judge was doing something. I mean, what would be the motivation for behaving that way? If they think you're just talking nonsense, who cares, right? If they think you're just talking nonsense, who cares? If they're threatening you basically by doxing you on national television and the media is playing a hand in that. You know, I've written stories before at Epoch Times talking about this behavior. It is a type of terrorism, frankly. It is the use of the threat of political violence or of the use of financial attacks by doxing you and possibly getting people to go after you, either physically or attacking your place of work or whatever else. And there have been cases of media doing this, for example, and of politicians playing this game as well, where they take the average American citizen and they dox them. And by doxing them, they send a threatening message to every single person that you better not question me. You better not question my actions as a governor, or as a judge in this case, or I will make public what you said, and my people will come after you. This is what they are doing. Now, what is that, right? That this is how the mafia acts. This judge is behaving frankly, like a mob boss. At worst, this judge is behaving like, frankly, a terrorist by using political intimidation to achieve, threat of violence or possible other attacks. Again, by doxing, we have seen cases of people getting attacked on this. By using that as a threat for a political purpose, to silence you, to make you too afraid to stand up. And by demonstrating, right? This is what these big media do, these big corrupt news outlets. They make it clear by showing that, again, they can dox any person, that they can go after the president of the United States himself, right? They can go after the president of the United States if he calls them out. And they can go after your grandma, if she calls up and she's unhappy about the way a public official is behaving. That it stretches from the highest to the lowest. In other words, that nobody is safe from their attacks or their threats of attack. This is the message they're trying to send by doing that, usually. And in addition to that as well, you even have journalists, for example, going during the whole Trump-Russia hoax. You might remember those videos. I can't remember which media it was. One of the three-letter name ones, right? going to people's homes and, questioning like an old lady on camera, being like, oh, you shared a Russian disinformation article on your Facebook page. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Trying to shame like an old lady on national television. This type of behavior, what is the purpose of this? It is meant to silence you. It is meant to send a message to you that nobody is safe, that if you dare speak out about them, if you dare question them, if you dare call out their perverted morals, that you yourself have done something wrong, and they will go after you. They will try to everything they can to attack you. If you were to ask me, I'd say the secret with this is to not show them that it works, to not let them feel justified that practices like this work, to turn it around on them, frankly, and to let them know that they're the ones who are making fools of themselves by acting like this. Do not let them silence you. Do not let them suppress you. Absolutely do not, because it's when you do that that you justify behavior like this. These are corrupt organizations masquerading as news outlets, working alongside corrupt government, masquerading as benign public leaders, working alongside, again, public officials, like judges in this case, who are not carrying out their oaths, who are not enforcing, again, the protection of the Constitution, who are not even looking at evidence in a massive crime like this. It's a disgrace, frankly, what is happening right now. Let's see here. Daniel Dresser, thank you. Let's see. Oh, sorry, Southern Wind. I'll get to a few more. House should vote against the Congress pro to move it to states to vote. Why do you believe in Congress? There are many traitors, one of them Romney. I have very limited faith in Congress, I'll be honest. At the same time, though, Trump doesn't need all of them to win. You can have, really 4 out of the 7 still backstab Trump, and Trump could still turn this around. He does have a strong chance at it, really. But then again, we'll have to see how it plays out again. It could be also that Trump is waiting to see how this plays out, right? It could be that they're waiting. Trump is waiting. Maybe he's going to see how it plays out on January 6th. He has until about January 19th to do other things. Maybe he's waiting to see what the normal process will be, and through this, right, to see whether there's any integrity left in the system of government we have. This is where things are at again. Now, Daniel Dresser, thank you. Why not use the Insurrection Act to go after the intelligence agencies? This would expose both voter fraud knowledge and wrongdoing on behalf of FBI. It does seem to be the intelligence agencies are doing pretty terrible things right now. That said, let me go into some other stories for the night. Now, I'll go through some of these quickly because I want to get to one of the big ones. One sec. So real quick, just some more evidence coming out right now. This is from Trump. Big news coming out of Pennsylvania about drop boxes. Now, Trump on Monday morning announced there will be, quote, big news in Pennsylvania as he challenges the election results in the Commonwealth. And he said this, big news coming out of Pennsylvania, very big illegal ballot drop that cannot be accounted for, rigged election. And this is significant, again, if Sidney Powell especially becomes special counsel, because things like this could be investigated and it could play a role in this. Now, in addition to this, right, there's another story. YouTube removes Trump's lawyer's opening statement from Senate hearing. Now, this is an issue we've been seeing as well on all this. Not only do you have threats, not only do you have suppression, not only do you have judges, allegedly, doxing people for questioning their actions, you have big tech cooperating with big corrupt politics and big corrupt media, right? To, again, censor people, to limit free speech. Now, look, people can complain. They can say, look, this is a bunch of partisan nonsense, whatever. Do you support big tech, these billionaires that everyone claims to be so against? Billionaires, big business, censoring the American public if they're, even their ability to view the news, even our ability to watch court cases happening. This is YouTube removing Trump's lawyer's opening statement from a Senate committee hearing. This is one reason why, again, you can watch, of course, Crossroads, and I guess we're on YouTube, unfortunately, still. Well, fortunately for now, but hopefully there's a replacement, right? We're watching YouTube again, right? We're publishing these videos on here of all these different court hearings and all these different events, because if we don't have it here, where are you going to find it? The media are not broadcasting it. You can't watch it in almost any news outlet you go to, right? You can't get this information. People are being denied the ability to even watch what's happening within political processes. Now, and again, not only are you being denied, right, the integrity of the system you are in terms of being able to elect who you choose, again, you're being denied the ability to even watch what they're discussing because big tech is censoring for this. And again, this is a double standard, right? 2016, Trump won, Hillary lost. What was the stance of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter then? Were they saying Trump is the president-elect, and you can't question it, or we're going to censor you? No, they were saying, yeah, go out and protest. Put on your hat, your pink hat, and go protest. And they were saying, at every step of it, we can overturn it at the electors. We can overturn it with this. They were even threatening electors from the Electoral College. They were threatening people at that time, right? YouTube didn't care at that time. Twitter didn't care at that time, and Facebook didn't care at that time. Again, right? You have political partisanship, people who don't care about these things. This isn't them saying fraud didn't take place. This is them saying they don't care that fraud took place, right? It's not, again, these people ranting about this stuff, these partisans, it's not that they don't believe fraud took place. There's more than enough evidence of it. It's that they don't care that fraud took place. And frankly, I think this is getting to the level of it's a moral issue, right? This is why we've said again and again, Epoch Times, this isn't just about Trump or Biden. This is about good and evil at this point, frankly, right? This is about good and evil. Now, on this note too, I mentioned before, actually, thanks for the support, everyone. I mentioned before, again, Smartmatic is threatening defamation lawsuits against media, anyone who's been reporting what Sidney Powell is saying. Lynn Wood now is representing Sidney Powell. Now, folks, you can watch the interview I did with Lynn Wood. It's on this channel. We just aired it before this segment. Now, this is Lynn Wood stating on Parler, quote, knowing my background and experience in defamation law, again, Lynn Wood is a defamation lawyer. Sidney, right, again, Sidney Powell, asked me to represent her and respond to Smartmatic litigation threats. So Smartmatic, I'm sorry. And he says, since everything Sidney is saying about election fraud is documented truth, my response to Smartmatic was simple and to the point. This is what he says in his letter. He says, Dear Eric, I represent Sidney Powell. I have carefully reviewed your letter of December 15th, 2020. I am not impressed. Miss Powell retracts nothing. And he says, file your lawsuit. Sincerely, Lynn Wood. And I'll tell you, folks, that if they do file that lawsuit, it's going to be very interesting to watch what plays out. Now, they even, of course, threatened Epoch Times with that. We're not folding either. And frankly, because we've verified what we report. Again, and also, frankly, if this is a defamation lawsuit, if they're trying to accuse people of defamation, right? They want people to retract the reports. Fox wrote this big funny thing with it. They want people to retract the reports. Look, if you go through with it, if you say put your money where your mouth is, file your lawsuit, let's go with it. What's going to happen, right? Well, you have a very fun finding process where you can get information on them. There's a very interesting process with lawsuits like this, right? Discovery. That's where the fun takes place. Now, it'll be interesting to see Smartmatic and Dominion participate in this discovery process, if you ask me. I think we have more to gain by letting them file this lawsuit. Let them go through this discovery process because, frankly, the American people have a right to know this stuff. Now, a couple more stories here. This is a Georgia senator. Coordinated illegal actions appear to have taken place during the election. Key word here, coordinated, right? Now, this is a recent report from a Georgia state senator studying the November 3rd election who found evidence of illegal activity carried out by workers at State Farm Arena in Atlanta. And he said this. This is from a report from the state Senate's election law study subcommittee chairman. Quote, the events at the State Farm Arena, this is the place where they had the votes flipped from Trump to Biden. This is where they had people, again, bringing out these big, cases of votes from underneath these tablecloths. This is where they had all these weird anomalies, right? It said this. The events at the State Farm Arena are particularly disturbing because they demonstrated intent, criminal intent, right? Isn't that the word you're looking for? They demonstrated intent on the part of election workers to exclude the public from viewing the counting of ballots, an intentional disregard for the law. Intent, disregard for the law. What does that tell us? Illegal activity, right? The number of votes that could have been counted in that length of time was sufficient to change the results of the presidential election and the senatorial contest. Furthermore, there appears to be coordinated illegal activities by election workers themselves who purposely placed fraudulent ballots into the final election totals. What are we seeing here? Intent, right? Intent to violate the law, meaning illegal activity, meaning, well, should the courts act on this? Should people go to jail? Well, if we had rule of law, yes, we would. But again, we'll have to see what happens with it, right? Knowingly, coordinated, meaning more than one person involved, meaning intentional on a large scale, not one individual, working to overturn the election, meaning what? What do you call it when a large number of people attempt to overthrow a duly elected president? What do you call it when a large number of people look to subvert a governmental system, right? What do we call that? It's a coup, right? Isn't that a coup? Now, here's one for you all. Again, career intelligence officials, deep state, right? Delay of DNI report on foreign interference draws ire. Now, remember, the Director of National Intelligence right now, the DNI, they're waiting for the reports of the intelligence community on what happened, on their assessment of foreign involvement in the elections, of foreign interference in the elections. DNI John Ratcliffe, now he has come out and said China, Russia, and Iran interfered in our elections, but it does not appear that the intelligence community is cooperating with him. Now it says here, the politicization of intelligence, both with the assessments of foreign interference in the U.S. election and of the wider allegations of voter fraud, is damaging to the country's democracy and has negative long-term implications. Former officials in the government and intelligence community told the Epoch Times. Now, John Ratcliffe, Director of National Intelligence, or the DNI, was notified by, quote, career intelligence officials on December 16th that the IC, the intelligence community, was unable to meet the December 18 deadline set by an executive order by the President of the United States. They're defying the President of the United States, right? And then, again, they were unable to meet because they couldn't cooperate, right? That was the thing. They couldn't coordinate, by an executive order to report on foreign threats to this year's election. They said the delay was due to the IC intelligence community receiving relevant new information since the election and the fact that, quote, a number of agencies have not finished coordinating on the product. Now, Bart Marcois, former Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of Energy for Policy and International Affairs under the Bush administration, told the Epoch Times that, quote, I think that's dishonesty on the part of the bureaucrats inside the intelligence community. And who are these unelected officials, these bureaucrats, these career bureaucrats? Well, the other word for that is the deep state that people use. And he said this, I've never known the IC, the intelligence community, to say to a president or even to a deputy assistant secretary that we don't have sufficient information to answer your question. They would say, normally at least, right? They would say, we don't have complete information, but here is our report based on the information that we have at this time. And remember, let's go back in time, right? Let's go back in time. Remember when the media was talking about Trump, Russia, all this stuff, right? Remember when they were talking about all this nonsense? Remember when they said that Russia hacked the election and they talked about how Julian Assange was having this information? And then they never actually, it turned out they never even did the audit of these machines. They never actually did the technical forensics on these machines to prove it was hacked. That instead they took the report from a group that was paid for by the Democrats. That the claim that the hack even took place was based on that, not based on an actual investigation. And the DNI at that time wrote this paper concluding that fraud took place. And if you read that report, the only claim they had in there was that Russia Today, RT, had a bias against Trump. And based on the fact that RT is a state-run media to an extent, that was therefore Russia interfering in our election, right? Absolute nonsense, absolute hypocrisy, absolute, frankly, deep state nonsense, demonstrating, again, that they are taking this, it appears, on partisan grounds. That they released this hack job report that threw the country into 4 years of chaos and 4 years of division. And when you have actual evidence of voter fraud taking place, they say, oh, no, nothing to see here. We don't have time to look into it. Taking too long, right? Again, right? Double standards, partisan nonsense. That's what happened. And one more point on this. Barr. Ever remember Attorney General William Barr? Barr says he has no plans to appoint special counsel in Hunter Biden probe. Now, Attorney General William Barr said Monday he has no plans to appoint a special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden, son of Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden. And he was responding to a reporter's question at a press conference on Monday about whether he intends to make such an appointment. And he said this: to the extent that there's an investigation, I think that is being handled responsibly and professionally currently within the department. And to this point, I have not seen a reason to appoint a special counsel, and I have no plan to do so before I leave. Now, Barr did appoint Durham as special counsel, and we were, of course, waiting for this Durham report ahead of the election. It did not come. Durham never released his report. The American people were left, frankly, in the dark with this whole Trump-Russia scandal, and left without knowing to this day what illegal activity may or may not have taken place. We were never given closure on 4 years of scandal, 4 years of nonsense that, frankly, has been deeply debunked. And the people responsible for that may go scot-free because of that, if this is, depending what happens, right? Now, this is also Barr. Barr is saying as well, there is no basis for federal government to seize voting machines. It says here again, Attorney General William Barr said Monday that he does not think the federal government has the authority to seize voting machines amid election fraud allegations. And he said this: I see no basis now for seizing machines by the federal government, wholesale seizure of machines by the federal government. Now, again, one of the big problems we have here is that there's significant circumstantial evidence of fraud with these machines. The one forensic audit we did get showed a 68% error rate or higher, right? 68% error rate or higher, and showed that there were systems within these machines that allowed people to intentionally alter the outcome of an election, because these machines basically generate errors at a massive rate, 68%, and 0.0008% is the legally allowed limit on that, right? They generate way beyond the legally allowed limit. Then what happens, right? They adjudicate the votes. And I say that right now. They adjudicate these. And these are split. These are left then for independent, basically, decision on what it says. Meaning that this poll worker, and you're assuming this poll worker is not politically insane enough, right? Politically agitated enough, which the media has been doing political agitation for the past 4 years, based on the idea that the individual poll worker is not politically agitated enough to, let's say, refuse to put the vote for the person they hate, in this case. Again, it's a system that leaves a door wide open for massive fraud, 68%. And so should these machines that have been proven to this point, based on the forensic audit that did take place, should these machines be seized and investigated? Should the American people be given answers on the integrity of these machines? Or should the data on them be deleted, be allowed to be deleted, as is happening in some areas? Should they be locked away? Should the American people be denied this right? And keep in mind, right, this was not a partisan issue. This was not a partisan issue 2 years ago, back when, 2016, 2018, right? If again, right, this was just a few years ago in the media, New York Times, CNN, Huffington Post, all these guys were still talking about how serious the risk of election fraud was. Now the narrative is nothing like this happens. All these media were talking about the threats of these voting systems, these voting machines. Now it's not an issue. Now, if they're saying, right, 2016, 2017, right, let's go back in time. 2017, they're saying no issue, or sorry, 2017, they're saying these machines have huge issues, huge potential of voter fraud. They're talking about all these potential loopholes. What actually happened to close those loopholes, right? Now they're saying no possible chance these machines could be used in fraud. What happened between them saying massive chance these machines could be used for fraud, and now they're saying these machines are basically invulnerable to fraud? These machines are more powerful than your MacBook or your PC, your Windows laptop, which both need regular patch updates and always have vulnerabilities. That these machines in terms of cybersecurity, right, in terms of their ability to be unhackable, are more secure than any other computer in the United States. They're more secure than Bill Gates can make any computer, more secure than an Apple machine. No cybersecurity vulnerabilities whatsoever. These are absolutely secure machines. What was changed? Right? Yeah, they're running Windows XP. What was changed? Probably. What was changed before them saying huge potential of fraud and no possibility of fraud? Nothing. Nothing was changed. And so on what basis are they drawing this conclusion, right? On what basis are they saying that somehow this shifted? On nothing. Which tells you what about these people? What does that tell you about the intention of the narrative they're pushing, right? What does that tell us about why they have changed their narrative, right? Maybe it's because they have political interest in this. Maybe it's because something happened and they were sure something was going to happen and they no longer felt the need to push the narrative they were pushing. And so they flip-flopped it and they decided that lying to the American people is a better way through which to achieve their political agendas. Doesn't that seem to be the case? Yeah, rules for thee and not for me. That's what it is, right? All right, let's go to a few more questions. It's Aurora Diaz. Been hearing Steve Bannon ask several guests if Biden could get a security clearance despite his ties to China. Is there any way Biden could be denied presidency due to being denied his security clearance? We have seen reports, for example, that the Pentagon was refusing to give him his security briefings. There were reports on that. Now, there were different reports on why that happened. Initially, they said, oh, well, this was just something for the holidays. There were other reports coming out saying, actually, the Biden campaign was not really alerted to this. Others said he was alerted of it. News was kind of all over the place. It's honestly hard to tell what's happening with it. We'll have to see. For that to happen, there would probably have to be a serious investigation to prove that he has special interest with China. The intelligence community would have to release some kind of an assessment to justify that. From Curious Q&A, question 1. If CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, Xi, meaning Xi Jinping, come forward with their evidence on U.S. election rigged evidence, would DOJ look into them? And hard to say. If China came forward with evidence on the U.S. election being rigged, I doubt the United States would act on it because it would be deemed China's disinformation. Probably, I don't think it would work. But at the same time, if it came from Five Eyes members, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, very likely it would have a big impact, or most Western countries. Allegedly, as Mike Flynn has pointed out, other countries were very likely monitoring the elections. He says they were monitoring it. This is common practice. The United States as well monitors elections in other countries. And if they were monitoring it and they don't have rules, for example, like we do, that you can't monitor American citizens, maybe they do have significant evidence they could bring forward. None of them so far are doing that. Number 2 on this, who Big Boss, the driver on the big media, on the corrupted news, and the main reason behind their objectives. Who is Big Boss? They're saying, I think they were alleging, and Trump alleged, that Biden is the, quote, big guy named in the Hunter Biden files. Well, we'll have to see. This is from Renee S. If Biden is sworn in, is the Constitution at risk? They lie, cheat, and sidestep justice. What do you think? Love the documentary, and so thank you for your work. I appreciate it. So the question here is, if Biden is sworn in, is the Constitution at risk? Absolutely. Because right now we see the Constitution already being violated in the way that states bypass their state legislatures in order to change election laws. We see the changes to election laws that were made that played a significant role in overturning the elections, that played a significant role in what we saw with, again, votes being tallied after the fact, which flipped Pennsylvania, for example, to the Democrats. That the mechanism used for them to win some of these battleground states was done illegally. It was done in a way that does not follow what's stipulated in the Constitution. That, of course, they're supposed to go through the state legislature on this. They bypass that process. That in itself is a violation of our Constitution. On top of that, if the Supreme Court refuses to look at violations of the Constitution, absolutely this is demonstrating that the Constitution does not need to be followed and you will not be punished for violating it, right? This is sending a message to government officials that they can violate the Constitution and not be punished for it. In addition to this as well, yes, they're arguing again the Constitution is a document up for interpretation. It's an outdated document. It needs to be constantly updated, kept alive, right? A living document. Absolutely, they want to change it. Keep in mind, this is not the first time this has happened in the world. Maduro got in, right? Hugo Chavez got in Venezuela. One of the first things he did was change the Constitution, rewrote the Constitution. A lot of these officials, the first thing they do, these corrupt officials, the first thing they do is rewrite the Constitution to change the rules of the game in their favor. And slowly from there, make what is illegal legal. And frankly, that's exactly what they did with this election. They made what is illegal legal by doing things that violate the Constitution. The way that they changed election laws, the way that they took down the safeguards and the barriers and the checks and balances that are supposed to be there to make sure something does not take place, which we now see taking place, which are all these anomalies in the election, right? This is from Luis de la Rosa. Hey, Josh, since when do you think this Marxist ideology infiltrated our political system? I would say heavily ahead of ahead of World War II, actually. There's lots of books about this. Roosevelt himself having, unfortunately, had a lot of influence from it. If you want to talk about early spreading of communism, socialism in the United States, you can look to the Owenites and to the communes they had, which failed. This is the irony, actually, of when you had different communist groups trying to spread the revolution early on, like in the days of Marx. You had the Owenites and stuff like that. Look, the American system was open. If you wanted to start up your own little community in some part of the U.S. and build a commune, right, a communist commune, and practice communism, you could. Nobody cared. The Shakers were an Owenite group, right? You had plenty of these groups. They failed. They failed as societies. It was not sustainable. Frankly, they tried it. Same thing in Israel. Technically, the whole what they call the kibbutz things they have, where they have these communist communes, they failed. They've been having these from very early on, right? Now, again, Marxist ideology, that was an attempt through the Owenites at the time of Marx. They failed. All these things failed. They then tried their insurrection through communist and socialist groups, anarchist and socialist groups, leading up to the bombing of Wall Street just before the 1900s, late 1800s. You had an attempted socialist revolution around the same time as the Bolshevik Revolution, like 1819. You then had more subversion taking place up to Roosevelt. You had more Soviet at that time subversion take place. Again, they became aware of it, like Alger Hiss and those guys, leading again to the Cold War, up through the 60s, the Cultural Revolution we had in the United States here. Guys like the Frankfurt School, for example, bringing about things like critical theory and critical race theory and all this nonsense. Marxist color revolution type ideas. You had, for example, different groups, the Jacobins early on, for example. You had, for example, you had tons of organizations. I wouldn't go into all of it. they've been subverting our political system for well over 100 years. Frankly, well over 100 years they've been trying to subvert our political system, and it's a testament, I think, to the American people that even with all this, they still haven't been able to take us. I do think that right now, where we're at in the United States is a critical moment in terms of this battle with freedom and socialism. If the American people defeat socialism now, this is the last nail in the coffin for the global socialist movement. This is the last nail in the coffin. If they win it now, they're going to take it and they're going to spread it everywhere. If America falls, this is the end of it. Now, folks, I'll take one more question. I'll call it a night. This is from Stephen Boorman. What do you think about swing state GOP lawmakers needed to adopt reclamation resolutions in order to actually have dueling electors, per the Epoch Times article by Stephen B. Meister? I did see that. They are calling on, for example, lawmakers needing to adopt reclamation resolutions. It seems to be that basically different states blocked people from casting their votes. They blocked, for example, in Michigan, the Republican electors from casting their votes. They're doing things that are unprecedented in terms of obstruction of our normal system of government. And they're saying now they need to adopt these reclamation resolutions in order to actually have dueling electors. Despite the fact we had dueling electors from 7 states, that process has been it's been damaged. People have intervened in that process. And so, yes, they do need to move on it, right? Yeah. All right, folks, I'm going to call it a night here. I always appreciate the support, folks. Again, check out the documentary. We now have it on YouTube, right? At least for now. So check out the documentary on election fraud. We have it on the Crossroads channel. If they delete it, we have it elsewhere. But please check it out. Please watch it. You see errors, tell me. Email me, message me. I think it's pretty seamless, frankly. Again, check out the documentary. If you like it, please, please, please share it. Help get the word out on that documentary. Help it spread. Folks, always appreciate the support. Again, please take care of yourselves as always. Again, stay informed. Real quick, also, folks, please watch the Steve Bannon interview as well. I did, of course, I went on myself on War Room Pandemic with Steve Bannon. Check out that interview again. We have it on the channel. I think you'll really like it. I had Bannon on right afterwards. Actually, I did the interview on Crossroads in his studio, so you can watch that interview here in full. Also, I interviewed Lynn Wood at his home. It was quite the adventure going there. Well, one of his homes. It was quite the adventure getting that interview. It was a last-minute, spur-of-the-moment thing. I was actually in Florida. I got a call saying, come fly to this undisclosed location, and we'll get you the interview. It was an interesting adventure. We got the interview. Check it out, folks. I think you'll really like it. All right, folks, that said, as always, please take care of yourselves. As always, stay informed and stay free. Thank you.